Hello, Westchester. This is Ryan, your host of the Westchester Informed podcast. I'm bringing you episode number 2. We're actually recording on the same day. I've got Frank Perry here, and so we're going to hear from him. Obviously, a lot about home rule, but I've got a lot of questions for him just based on his background. I don't know him that well, which is actually kind of a good thing for this one because a lot of the same questions that you might have we'll get a chance to ask and talk about. So just as a disclaimer, like the household keeping items that I always start with, we're not affiliated with the village. We're not directly supported by the village in any way. So I'm independent. I just started a podcast because I felt like there wasn't enough people out there getting informed, including myself, definitely including myself. And I have a life like everybody else, full of kids and work and all kinds of stuff that I don't always have the time to go over to village meetings or to implement change myself. And so I wanted a way for us to be able to sit down with these people and let them have a voice, but also have a voice ourselves and find out where that can take us. Because I consume podcasts and I prefer that way of finding out information. And so I saw on Facebook that a lot of people were talking about some issues, but they weren't really getting. It's just not a good way for me to communicate. So that said, though, obviously you can find this podcast on Facebook. I'm going to start a page, or I have started a page called Westchester Informed, the name of the podcast. So I will be going through YouTube to post these podcasts. So you'll find it on YouTube as well under Westchester Informed. And then I'll provide links that I can in YouTube and Facebook for any information that I have or that I've come across, particularly at least in these first few episodes pertaining to home rule and anything else that comes up that I think deserves a link. As of right now, I'm self-sponsored, and so I don't know what I'm doing necessarily with podcasting, but I'm doing my best, and they're going to get better. They're going to get more fun. So I'm not. It's nothing professional. I'm just starting this because I feel like people want it or people need it. I needed it. So I'm self-sponsored. My company is Pravda LLC. We do real estate sales and purchases, and if you're looking to buy or sell a home. And then I also do rehab. That's really my passion, is rehab. So if you have any rehab projects, or a lot of times I'm buying and selling homes myself, quote unquote, fix and flips. So that's me, I guess, in a nutshell. If you want to contribute to what I'm trying to do, I'd like to take a page out in the paper starting, or hopefully it comes out in March before the referendum, but I'd like to take a page out or something, an ad out where I can inform people about this. So we're on Facebook under Westchester Informed. Please share all the posts you can if you're getting good information from these, which I'm hoping you are because I'm putting in the work. But you can find us on Facebook and help share it in that way. But if you want to contribute, there's going to be a shop now. It says shop now, but that's basically just the way that Facebook allows me to link to PayPal. So you can contribute to me so I can actually do those things. I'm going to be super transparent about any monies that I raise or anything that comes my way, so I can you guys can understand that I'm trying to get this out into the people's hands or to their ears as much as I can, so that we can be the most informed village that we can. And I think people will really start to gravitate toward this kind of conversation. So you can hear the inflection and the tone and the things that we need to do to understand each other better in this polarized world that we live in. So that said, that's all I've got, but I want to bring in Frank now. Frank Perry, how are you, man?
I'm well.
Good.
I'm well.
Good. This is pretty much what I know about you, I guess. Okay, so just from us talking a little bit before the podcast started, you've been a trustee. This is your third term now. So you and Nick, who I just recently interviewed or did, are the sort of veterans, right?
Yeah.
So third term, he's in his 11th year. I would assume you are too then?
I'm in my
11th,
9th.
12th.
He's got 2 years
okay.
on me.
All right. Okay, cool. So yeah, like I did with him, I mean, I know you have development here, or build. You own property here in town. Yeah. So again, I think that's an important point as we wash out these home rule issues and different issues around the village, that you live here, you have a stake here. Obviously that makes you passionate about what you do, and so yeah. Tell me more. I guess how did you tell me how you ended up in Westchester? I guess, and just a synopsis of how you ended up here and what. Give me a little bit of
how did I end up in
Westchester.
Well,
just like
I was born.
Okay, all right.
And that was it.
No,
I was in Westchester.
Not that far. Not that far.
And that's basically the story.
Okay.
I've lived here my entire life.
Okay.
I went to Divine Infant Grade School,
Okay.
class of 84. And I went to St. Joseph High School, class of 88.
Okay.
And then I always stayed pretty much local. My dad owned businesses in the city of Chicago. Both sides of my family were still living in the city of Chicago, so I spent a lot of time at their houses. I went to Benedictine University College. I attended DePaul University for my graduate studies. Always stayed in the Chicago area, always lived in the house that I'm in now. It's a 2-flat house. My parents and I lived upstairs. My grandparents lived in the middle, and across the street were my other set of grandparents and my aunts and my uncles from the other side of the family. It was kind of cool. So I had both sides of my family living across the street from each other.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
you and
a
I
really
have a lot in common in that way.
It's a really nice way to grow up.
Yeah.
My daughter had a taste of it. My mom just passed away, I think it was 3 years ago, but up to then, my daughter was going upstairs every day for breakfast.
Nice.
And protection from
the
parents.
That's cute.
So
all of my wife's. I met my wife in 2007, and you know what? I hate to sidebar, but I have to say Happy Valentine's Day to my wife Carolyn, and
Peggy.
She has spent plenty of nights alone while I read through material and try to prepare to do this thing. So
we do need our wives' support.
Yes,
everything
I appreciate
we do,
her support,
sure.
and I love her for that. So. But yeah, I met her in 2007 and started to visit Westchester, and then we moved here in 2009 from a condo in Aurora, and so I bought a bank-owned house here in 2009 over by St. Joe's. In fact, we backed up right to the field.
That's nice.
Where the festival was and everything. So then we moved, as our family grew, we obviously moved to a bigger house, but we stayed in Westchester. And I joke on the intro that it seemed like it was just so far away to go to like Westmont or, even small towns around that we were looking into. And it was just like, that seems so far. Like, let's just stay here.
Going west, it always seems like you're going far.
Yeah, like her whole family lived here, her brothers and her sister, and everybody was here. And so it was just like, it's nice to have that in common where you just have your whole family in one area.
It's quote unquote old school.
Yeah. Well, yeah. A lot of people just fly all over the country.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm in Chicago. My sister's in Iowa. My parents are in Arizona. There's people everywhere. My aunt's in Kentucky. So yeah, you actually have to try really hard to get together nowadays. And reunions are more important or a bigger deal and harder to coordinate. But okay, great, awesome. So Trustee. I mean, why and what do you?
Well, I was in the valet parking business in the city of Chicago for a number of years, and my dad and my aunt owned a beauty salon called Concetus. And my dad was not well, and my aunt had fallen ill, and I was asked to come in and run the family business.
Okay.
And that was in Westchester. So now I'm back living in Westchester, working in Westchester. I still have my businesses going off in the city, and I opened up Joe's Place in, I think it was 1999, to supplement my business, because I owned a beauty salon now, and I did not do hair. So that means I'm not in control of my own business. So I needed something like an insurance policy. So that's why I opened up Joe's Place.
Okay.
And in the process of opening up Joe's Place, I got to know the kids in the neighborhood that I hadn't been in touch with probably in 15 years because I was spending all my time in the city of Chicago.
Okay.
Once Joe's Place opened, these kids that were coming in Joe's Place 20 years ago are now my dear friends. I go to their weddings, I'm invited to their family parties, and Westchester, I fell in love with Westchester all over again. And now Westchester is given to my childhood. Westchester is given to my adolescence, my adulthood, my professional life.
Yeah.
So I was in contact with Mayor Pooley at the time, and he had suggested that I run for library board. And I ran for the library board, and I won my seat, and I left the library board as vice president to run for village trustee. I think that was in 2011. And the rest is history. It was just my way of giving back.
Yeah.
And I never thought that I would be as engulfed in wanting to be at Village Hall helping the residents as I am.
Yeah.
I'm more in tune most days with what's going on with the village budget and future than I am with my own businesses, which is a problem sometimes, but that's okay.
But it means you care, and that's what this is about. So that's appreciative for sure.
Yeah. And I do own 3 pieces of property in town.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I had said on the previous podcast, and maybe even in the intro, that even my real estate business sort of triggered this because I care about the village a lot, but I also deal with permitting, and I deal with all these different issues, and it's like I've gotten a ticket while the car's in the driveway for not having a vehicle sticker. And so all these issues that I think people, like, you can't please everybody, but that people, I see on Facebook and different areas and talk to people, and they're upset about this, or they don't think this is right. And it's like, that can only eat at you so long before you're like, okay, you know what, I'm going to do something.
Right.
And just for me, I'll never become an elected official. I just don't want to be. But, at this point, I think this was the best avenue for me, at least, is to try to contribute something, because it just didn't seem like it. And so I get where you're coming from with the whole, you get kind of drawn in from the community.
From being in town for as many years as I've been here, in the different ways that I've been contributing and taking from the town, there were many a time where I had an issue with things that were going on, and I felt that I was talking on deaf ears. And running for trustee truly was my way of saying, hey, residents, you got a problem, you got a beef with something, you're not getting anywhere with it, let me know.
Yeah.
I'm going to try my best to rectify it and take that headache off of your plate, because God knows everybody's got headaches, and you don't need the parking next to a fire hydrant, but you're really not next to the fire hydrant kind of a ticket.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing.
Don't stop. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable, but you're Italian, and so you're talking with your hands.
I am talking with my hands.
I just want people to know what that sound is.
Right.
So you're talking with your hands.
Oh, right,
so,
you're picking that up.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Sorry. It's fine. I don't want you to stop because I want you to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But okay. Let's talk a little about home rule, right?
Okay.
I mean, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So home rule comes on the ballot in 2016, gets shot down.
Right.
It's back up.
Yeah.
You've been here since 2011.
I have.
The biggest question I think to start with would be, and that I've gotten from telling people that I'm going to do this, is what got us here to where we think we need home rule, and why can't it be fixed otherwise?
Well, back
because you have a history
with my
so
history,
say,
but you have to go
been
past
audited,
my history.
We've had all these kind of
Westchester,
speaking just about the village.
Westchester was built to be a bedroom community. So during the times where you had the booms of the malls popping up, we were consumed with houses, townhouses being built, that kind of thing. So we missed out on the opportunity to reserve space for retail money. So we don't have any.
Okay.
Almost literally. We've got Mariano's and we have Jewel, and that's it. So now in 2020,
in the mattress store, don't forget.
We have we had 3 at one point. So now in 2020, we're faced with pension costs that are never ending, and we have less officers on the force now than we've had in previous years, less firefighters on the force than we've had in previous years. Just because we are really running on a skeleton budget at this point. For a number of years, finances weren't being reported to the trustees. We found gaps in reconciling. Just in the last year with our new village manager, he's got a finance background. He's brought finances back in-house, so we no longer go out of house for our accounting services. That's all done in-house. And he's gotten a grasp on what's going on. We've corrected all of this. We're getting regular reporting now. And I do feel that the residents would benefit from the home rule, because you'll find that fees will be lessened. And
how so?
Will be. I can only speak upon myself.
Okay.
I'm looking, when people say you're going to tax, you're going to tax, you're going to tax.
Yeah.
I have no use for taxing anything really, except for I call them the sins. Your gaming, your alcohol, your tobacco.
Yeah, we touched on that last time.
Marijuana.
Yeah.
That's really all I'm looking to tax. I know realtors have a real problem with home rule. From what I could gather, there's fees that we could put onto the closing costs of a house?
Transfer tax.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah,
the transfer tax.
And here's the thing, and we talked about this, and I know that it doesn't seem like we're going to get a specific answer unless I look it up more. But from what I understand, that even though you are a home rule community, you still need to pass a real estate transfer tax as a tax on the privilege of transferring title to real estate or a beneficial interest in a land trust. The state rate of 50 cents per 500 of property value. Counties have a rate of 25 cents per 500. And home rule units may place an additional local real estate transfer tax. However, voters must pass a referendum prior to this tax being imposed. And that comes from an educational brochure on home rule from the Citizen Advocacy Center. So I was reading that because it's interesting to me because that was one of the first texts I got, and it's one of the main ways I found out that home rule was even going to be on the ballot. I'm sitting here thinking about doing this podcast and talking to everybody, and then I get a text that says, hey, from a fellow realtor saying, hey, they're at it again, home rule, vote no. And I'm thinking, oh, well, yeah, I've heard of that before, and I probably should look into that, but doesn't that just give them more power to tax or to do things? And then as I started to really understand it, because I needed to know my stuff, I'm going to sit down with the trustees because I figured they know more. As I dig into it and as I read about it, I go, whoa, wait a minute. Like, there's a lot I didn't know.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm changing my mind completely, because I'm not, I at least for this particular podcast, I don't really want to say yay or nay either way. I want to present as much as information as I can, talk to the people that are gonna have an effect. Like you said, or I think Nick said it. How are you gonna expect people to elect trustees at the same time they're giving them that power of home rule? So that's, he was saying that that's probably why he didn't feel it was appropriate to put on the last, election.
Ballot?
Yeah, ballot. And so,
okay, I understand now.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I had to go through that real quick, what you were saying.
Yeah, so I want to sit down with the people that we're giving this power to.
Yeah, right.
But I also, as I'm reading it, I'm going, whoa, like this isn't meant to be what I think a lot of people think it is, which is just this ultimate power that we're handing to these people. And if we trust them anyway, you have a business here, you have homes here,
that's it.
What are we doing here? Like, why are we're not going to shoot ourselves in the foot? But does that necessarily mean we have to elect the same people over and over in order to get that? Maybe, but at the same time, I think that puts more pressure on who we elect and getting to know them and understanding them than what they can do.
Right. I agree.
And so that's just my take, at least a sidebar on that, because of the real estate thing. Like I have my license and all that stuff, and that's my business. So it's
sure.
Man, between permitting and stuff like that, I've sort of had my own feeling about it, and now understanding, what home rule would do. So anyway, where were we on that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, so I'm sorry to throw us all
okay.
off, but so we were talking about home rule, how we got here. So you have history of seeing the village go through what I don't know anything about, but understand to be some issues, whether that's related to who was in power, what they were doing in power. We've had our fair share of shenanigans.
Sure.
So with that in mind, not getting into specifics, but with that in mind, how do you support home rule, I assume?
I do support home rule. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just get that. So in supporting it, what do you think we need to do? Why do you think it came about, and what do you think it would do for us?
Why do I think home rule has come about?
Yeah, I guess we're back to the question. This was the original question that brought us back on track, is why can't we fix this without home rule?
Here's my take on it. Home rule will be a benefit.
Okay.
If home rule doesn't pass, then we're going to run our town the way we've been running our town. Okay. I'm looking forward to these TIF areas that we've designated on Roosevelt Road and the old St. Joe's property. I'm looking forward to them being developed and retail bearing businesses occupying those TIF areas and bringing in the extra income that we need.
Okay.
With home rule, that extra income could multiply exponentially and not affect the residents. My whole thing is to make Westchester Residents First, part of our platform was to not go to referendum and hit the residents up for every little thing that we are falling short of on the village end. If we don't go home rule, we will absolutely have to referendum for street repairs, infrastructure. You name the tiniest thing, alleys. I had a resident get a hold of me and said, well, I don't want to have to pay She said, I don't want home rule because I don't want to have to pay for alleys. I don't have an alley. I said, you're actually arguing the point to pass home rule. Because if alleys need to be paved and we don't have the funds for it, we now have to go to referendum and ask the residents for permission to grant us the funds to pay for these alleys. That goes on your property taxes.
Yeah.
Now, everybody in Westchester is paying for the alleys that don't necessarily impact. So, with the home rule...
Sorry to interject. So I made this analogy in the last podcast where I was saying how if you're running a family household and you have only a few things you can do to affect your budget, make more money or cut your expenses, but to go to family members and say, hey, you now have to give me $50 every month, or hey, would you give me $50 every month from every one of your extended family members? It's like, what would they say?
How about seniors?
You know what I mean?
Fixed income people.
Exactly. So
pension people.
I think people don't look at it from the sense of they're not personal enough with it. Imagine having to go to your family members and ask them for $50 a month. They would be like, figure it out. You know what I mean? And that's, I think, sometimes where the residents are, where they're saying, you're coming to us and asking us for money. Well, why can't we figure this out?
Right.
What's going on?
And I've heard that before.
They want that transparency. They want to be able to say, okay, if I'm going to give you $50 a month, then you got to open your books to me, and I got to understand how you got here and what happened, and then know that you're not going to just come back and say, well, you know what, it's actually 100. So I don't know, like, it just coming from the resident's perspective, it can seem like that. And like I said, I've done a lot of reading, and I've understood home rule a lot better now. So now it's just a matter of who are we giving that power to, and how do we what is their intention with it, you know? And so
at our last board meeting last Tuesday, President Cattuso had mentioned that he prefers to not go home rule, and he actually said in private quarters that we were crazy for trying to do it.
Okay.
And he is proposing to go for referendum, like we had just said, for every little thing. Mm-hmm. And I had said, well, this way you have people paying for things that they're not actually going to be using. And when we go for the referendum, let's use the streets, for example, what happens if it gets turned down? Now we don't have the streets getting repaired. They are continuing to fail. And it would cost exponentially more money in years to come to fix that street that's still deteriorating because we didn't pass the referendum. Yeah. So what if that referendum doesn't pass another time? Now you're going to see your infrastructure really falling apart. Yeah. And we're just looking to fund these projects without having to hit the residents up for it on their property taxes. I'd like to hit the traveler that's coming through town and stopping at the gas station, who's shopping over at the Jewel Food Mart or over at Mariano's, that kind of a thing, so that the senior citizen isn't getting tapped on their fixed income for an extra $50 or whatever that may be. Yeah. Because it's a real issue with the seniors. Yeah.
And we mentioned in the last podcast about the 3 cents that you passed in the last
gas tax.
Yeah, with the last meeting.
Right.
And I read about that, and it's like, okay, you hear from the state level that we're getting this 19 cent tax, and then you hear from the local level we're getting another 3. Right. But as Nick explained, that's actually like a godsend from the state, because you're allowed to do that in Westchester now without being home rule. Yeah. And thank God, or like some of the money that we need wouldn't be there.
Well, we're looking to lose our red light cameras as well.
Well, that's actually...
Springfield is looking to take away the red light cameras, no matter what you feel towards the red light cameras. A lot of people hate them. Yeah. Some people understand them. But whatever the case may be, it was a source of revenue the size, and I like to compare it to funding our public works department. Yeah. That's basically as much money as we would need to
could you do that under home rule? Could you say, like, oh,
I'm pretty sure, I don't know 100%, but I'm pretty sure that if we're home rule, we'd be able to keep the red light cameras. But more importantly, if we lose the red light cameras, home rule will allow us to recoup those funds that we lost from the red light cameras on the backs of others outside of our residents. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, I still get gas here. I still buy, shop here.
And I've heard the argument they're just going to go to another town and we're going to lose the business there. And I like to think that I'm like average Joe.
Yeah.
And I'm gassing up at the Shell down the street.
But you know what? If you're like the 3 cents, and this is where I was going with that.
Yeah.
I'm talking to my wife about it, and I said, look, if you're in Westchester and you're upset about 3 cents per gallon, and you drive to another town, you're basically saying, regardless of what situation the village of Westchester is in, I'm not going to support them in fixing that problem. So it's almost, in a sense, it felt like I'm saying, you know what, I'm not willing to do that because I don't want Westchester to be that good of a town, or don't want their streets
Let's
fixed.
say you have a 20-gallon tank.
The intentions have to be there to say, yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
But let's say you have a 20-gallon tank times 3 cents.
Yeah.
Come on. It's not worth me just going down the street 3 blocks.
Well, you have to be careful because you're talking to a real estate flipper, and every single nickel adds up.
50
and
cents.
I know what they say.
On 50 cents on a $40 tank.
No, I'm telling you, my contractors used to laugh at me because I would save stuff to take it back. You're always taking plumbing parts back. Yeah, because it
adds
but,
up.
So no matter how you do your accounting, though, at the end of the day, and I mentioned this in the last podcast, there is so much more affecting our personal finances than just the village. So why not find out the most you can about what power this will give you guys, and then what you can do with it, or what you intend to do with it, and then decide from there. Because at the end of the day, I think we all want to live here. We all want this town to be the best it can be. And I myself am even going to go through that situation with a 6 and 4-year-old where I'm like, do I send them to private or do I send them to public? Do we move? That's one of the hot button issues for a lot of people. And we're under the impression that I would rather be in Westchester because the taxes are reasonable,
right,
and then send my kids to private school for 4 years and then be done, and then still live in Westchester. So we're looking at building up. In the next 6 years, we want to try to build up.
We just helped that cause too in the last month.
Just what?
We just helped that cause too in the last month
with the fire
sprinkler
thing.
With the sprinkler,
exactly.
Right.
So I think that there are. Back to, I guess, not to drone on it, but back to the intention of this podcast, because I think that there's things that aren't being said or aren't getting out there to the residents that are, you're moving on quickly and you're moving with care and passion for the village. And I don't think that's getting across. And so it doesn't matter whether I'm for or against home rule. I think that's the message that I'm trying to say is take a second here, guys. Look at everything first. And if you're telling me the intention, like Nick did, that intention is to hit some of the gas, the gambling,
that's it,
that kind of thing,
yeah. And safety issues. There's other non-taxing issues.
Yeah, sure.
That home rule benefits the town as well. But
can
being
you
a business guy,
touch on home rule and TIFs? You said we've established TIFs. Is that right?
They're going to be approved and active in April.
So clearly, we didn't need home rule to do that.
No.
Okay.
Right.
But talk to me about what the benefit to the town is of TIF.
Well, that's tax increment financing.
Yeah.
So we're going to give an incentive to businesses to come in and develop the area, and they won't have to pay taxes beyond what they've been for a number of years. It gets confusing. I mean, really.
Well, that sounds straightforward to me. Basically, you're saying your taxes will be frozen, or
yes,
you won't. Okay.
Right.
It's for a number of years.
Right.
Okay. Are you concerned there needs to be a makeup for that, or are you just
a makeup for the taxes?
In a time where we're looking to home rule to need the tax money.
Yes. Well, you have to look at the areas that we're tiffing.
Okay.
Let's first take a look at the St. Joe's area. There's no tax being garnered there.
Okay.
There's nothing happening at the St. Joe's.
I don't know if a lot of people know that. So
we don't
St.
get
Joe's
it.
isn't
It doesn't. Well, just they're not a retail place, so we don't get any taxes from there. So now look at the Roosevelt Road corridor. There's not much going on there either. There's about 10 buildings on the east side of the Roosevelt Road corridor, right before the hill, that 80% of those buildings are vacant.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the whole corridor looks a little shoddy and spent.
Yeah.
My committee is the Economic Development Committee. We've gone out there trying to beautify the area, gotten help from the businesses that are in the area, but still it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
The town is an older town.
Okay.
Tiffing that area, we've already gotten interest from multiple companies looking to put anything from, one of the companies wants to put a fuel station and a restaurant. Another company is looking at a hotel for that space. We've talked about sports complexes. These aren't our ideas. These are ideas coming from the developers that I've sit in on meetings.
Yeah.
And they've said, hey, you have this much space there. We could do this over here, and it's getting very exciting because this kind of talk hasn't happened in Westchester ever.
Okay. So, and that was one of the questions too. Is like, so you have TIFs started out as something, and I'm just from what I know. Don't worry about I'm not.
You want an example?
I'm not speaking. I'm not speaking Bible verse here. I'm just saying.
I could give you a visual example of what the TIF does.
Okay.
Look at the Target in Hillside. That was a TIFed area. Before that was there, it was. I'm pretty sure it was a dump. There was literally nothing in that area. Mayor Tamburino went about 25 years ago, I think it was, and managed a miracle, and their home rule in Hillside, managed a miracle and got a TIF increment financing area applied to that area where that Target is. And look what's happened to that area since. And now, after 20 years, everything in that development is now paying regular taxes back to Hillside.
Right.
And that's what we're looking for Westchester to happen.
Yeah. Because TIF started, I think, in terms of revitalizing blighted areas.
Yes.
But I don't think anybody would really want Westchester could be considered a blighted area. But I think what you're saying is we need to spur and spawn and trigger a lot of development. And one way to do that is to incentivize the people to come in, because just to make Westchester better isn't enough of an incentive a lot of times.
Shop Westchester. Why?
Yeah.
We need to give people a reason to shop Westchester.
Yeah.
I think
for
that's
sure.
on the horizon.
Yeah. What's happening with Joe's Place, by the way?
Joe's Place is empty right now, but I am looking to reopen.
I had an idea there, but we'll talk about it off the podcast.
But it might take another year and a half or so for me to do it.
Yeah. I might spitball something with it.
Okay, I'm in.
So and the other thing off the cuff that I was thinking is there a consideration of St. Joe's being like a downtown area, like a downtownish type of
right?
What if there were a street off of that and it would go into like a nice
That's
downtown?
what I'd like to see.
You know
that's what I've proposed, Ryan. It's funny you brought that up.
Pay for parking, like in LaGrange, you have lots that pay to park lots, and you have I don't know.
The only thing that's been presented to us so far has been residential.
Yeah.
The latest I've heard over there is senior living.
Yeah.
Non-assisted senior living. I should say non-subsidized senior living.
Yeah.
In that area. Once the TIFs get approved, I think that's going to be on the fast track at that point.
Okay.
But personally, I'm looking at that being a nice retail area in there, like a little pocket.
Yeah. I dealt with in my previous job. For 5 years I sold a company called Multivista that did pictures of places that were being developed, like high rises and different developments. Mm-hmm. And so I was selling to developers and construction companies and that stuff. So I learned a lot about TIFs, and I learned a lot about how developers think, where they go, why they go there, the whole process of development, and just in terms of, I had to call them at the right time or they weren't going to talk to me, that kind of thing. So I learned a lot about how developers sort of go about their business, and so it's interesting to understand that world and realize that there just has to be incentives, there has to be viability there, there's car counts, there's all these different things that go into it. And so if you're just a regular Joe that doesn't really know all that goes into that,
it's very detailed.
It's very hard to just to say yay or nay. I mean, it's hard to but they do it. People jump on. And
when I had the valet service in the city, I was doing valet parking for restaurants that were being built in TIF areas. So I already had contracts with these restaurants that were not open or even built yet, but I was in on meetings with the City of Chicago Economic Development TIF teams, just listening in, knowing where they were looking to place parking lots, that kind of a thing. And I had a good taste of it back then and retained a lot of our connections from there. And I knew that it was pivotal for us to get TIF.
So, okay, back to the topic at hand. It sounds like you're saying that you think that home rule will give us the power to tax the things we need to then bring in, as a TIF, bring in that development.
Well, the home rule and the TIF, I consider two completely
They
separate
are two.
things.
Okay, sorry, they are two completely separate things. But
we're going to get the TIF without home rule. Given
I understand that.
Okay,
I understand that for sure.
Yeah.
But I think like what what then that means is that you're encouraging the development utilizing the TIF, but we're going to sort of miss out on some of the taxes that might exist there.
Right.
But
No, we will.
But you okay, yeah,
not-
we're definitely going to miss out on
yeah,
some
we will,
taxes.
yeah.
But you think that could be made up possibly by home rule, which would tax things that you would like to see taxed when those developments happen.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So not only are you going to try to tax some of the things that go on here already, but you're sort of, that's how I'm tying it
So
together.
monies that we would miss out on home rule, I see us being able to replenish with the developments that will be taking place.
That was
Now-
the other, okay, hold on.
if
That
you
was the other direction.
Now if you parlay the two together,
Okay.
now you're talking
Yeah,
a real...
so you went the other way on it. So you think that if we shoot down home rule, you think that the TIF will spur development enough to at least then encourage taxes to be able to
Yes.
help?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable.
Okay.
That's the whole purpose of the TIF
Okay.
is to spur interest.
So what's the
and come
concern
in.
that you think that would take too long then why the need for home rule? Do you think that would take too long necessarily, or you think, do we need the money now? Do we need to start?
We're not
taxing
going to
now?
be seeing. We're not going to be seeing additional taxes from that TIF for probably 20 years. They get frozen. Remember?
No, they get frozen. But then, are you saying that the taxes in areas that aren't being taxed, like you said, St. Joe's there's no taxes coming
Right,
from
yeah.
that? So you think that
We'll just get the regular property tax.
Yeah,
From
with
what
the
I could gather, we're
TIF
just going to
involved,
get
we
right.
regular property taxes, but still that would be different than now,
Right. I'm more focused on the Roosevelt Road corridor because that's where your tax-bearing businesses will probably go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm concerned about the St. Joe's TIF because St. Joe's needs to. They're carrying two notes over there.
Yeah.
And they need to restructure themselves. And I'm a charger.
Yeah.
Class
yeah.
of '88.
Yeah.
You know, I'm on
Okay.
board.
All right. So in terms of the Roosevelt, let's just talk Roosevelt corridor
Yeah.
then, because that could be a whole nother issue, rabbit hole to go down with St. Joe's. But so
Right.
the Roosevelt corridor, and then, so you're thinking that there is some tax gain through the TIF still, or I'm confused
The
because
tax
I'm
will
saying
be gained
if you're
from the
already
businesses that are going to establish
they're going to
themselves.
try to establish
Right,
themselves
yeah.
there, right? Okay. But is that going to be more money than we're getting now because
Yeah.
there's
Oh, sure.
there either is no business there or there's a business there now that
Well, there's really no retail there at all.
there's really not.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you're just trying to instill some retail on that
Economic
corridor
development.
that will then get us more tax revenue.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So
Every time a developer comes to the table and they mention residential,
Yeah.
I tell them, listen, residential's great. Westchester's got plenty of it.
Yeah.
We need retail.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm
So
all
that
about the
I
retail.
guess that then it comes back to just the idea that home rule then would give you additional leeway there, or do you have in mind something else for home rule? I mean, in terms of, because there's a number of different ways that I was trying to get into, and I think like I said on last podcast, I'm going to do a whole separate podcast going through the information I found without a guest, because I think that you guys are important to talk to just in terms of overall concept, idea, and intention. But learning about home rule is a whole different animal, and I think I'm going to have to just do that separately, where
There's a lot to consider.
educate people separately, and that's fine. I can do that. But you've got things like, and just in terms of the specific definition, I think there was, protection of public health, safety, morals, and welfare. But then there's licensing, taxing, and then incurring debt. So with Nick, we kind of went through each one of those kind of as we went, and so. Do you have an idea of whether or not we would incur debt immediately, whether we would tax immediately? What's your idea of how we should move forward if home rule passes?
I'm looking for
What's first,
on that portion of it. We're using a company called King McKenna.
Okay.
That should tell us that exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Looking at the finances and then saying, okay,
Right.
this will.
I'm never looking to incur debt.
Yeah.
Unless it's debt so that the village ourselves could build something for the residents, then I would look to incur debt, like a senior center.
Yeah.
A different building for that. I wouldn't mind bonding out for that as long as we could afford it.
Yeah.
As long as we could afford it. I'm on record 1,000
do you
times.
bond
Is
out
it in
for-
the budget? Is it in the budget?
Yeah. Do you bond out for even things that are like, I don't know, the Sunnyside project when
Sure.
it comes to that sewer?
Well, a lot of those are done with grants too.
Yeah.
80-20 grants, we pay 20% and the state will match it. Or
Okay.
grants have been kind of scarce the last 3 or 4 years, but
Yeah. If anything, I'm showing people the amount of understanding that it takes to really know what Westchester encourages.
Westchester will get even more money on citations. Where we have to kick back a certain amount of money to the state, we can now take that money for ourselves.
What do you mean?
Like court costs, that kind of thing, on citations, tickets, that nature. Okay. We would actually be able to make more money on that citation than we already are.
Right. Okay.
With home rule.
So the citations don't need to go up.
But we're working under the state guidelines. Right. Of course, the state's going to make guidelines that are favored for the state.
Yeah.
And I always like to tell people, we're ran by the state right now. You like the way Illinois is being run? I don't know anybody that likes the way Illinois is being run. I mean, that's the only bipartisan thing going on. Nobody likes the way the state's being run. Yeah. Why do you want these same exact people controlling how we run our town? We should be running our town because we're the residents that have to live here, and we care.
Yeah.
And plus, I've heard people say this is just a money grab. Who are we grabbing the money from?
Yeah.
Ourselves? Because we all own our residence in town. We've all been residents in town. We all pay bills in town.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. And we touched on that, but just the idea that, and I've touched on it here, just the idea that, okay, the 3 cents per gallon or you know what I mean? Yeah. Trust me, I've gotten a ticket in my driveway for not having a vehicle sticker. So my whole thing I've railed against vehicle stickers, but at the end of the day, you also have to look at it as a resident. You have to kind of open your mind up a little bit and go, well, it is money that the village needs to do certain things. What are those certain things? Well, I don't know. When I call the fire department, they come.
Yeah.
When I call, you know what I mean? So sometimes I'm speaking too simply, but in other times I think we've seen what other villages might do. But I think just in the material that I've got here in front of me, there's examples of different cities and what they've done and municipalities and what they've done with home rule that are positive things. And so I think sometimes I fear that it sounds like I'm headed more toward supporting home rule, but I just want to make sure that's because there is such a great voice against it for these reasons that the more and more I find out, the less and less reasonable those voices seem because of maybe the information they have about what it's done for certain villages.
Sure.
So like you mentioned, the Target and that kind of thing. It's a home rule town.
It's wonderful.
And in fact, when you want to talk real estate taxes, I've read that real estate taxes have gone down in areas that are home rule because they can get that money from other places. And so do you say, I don't know, 6 of one, half dozen of another when it comes to where you're getting the money? Yeah, but I've said before, you know what, charge me $36 more a year on my property taxes and don't make me walk into the village every April 30th, or before April 30th to pay this tax, And so the psychology behind it, as I mentioned in the last podcast, is 5, 6, 7 taxes versus one tax that's higher and accomplishes the same thing. What do you do? And I wouldn't, like I said, I'm not going to ever be an elected official because I don't want to be in your position to have to make those decisions. But thank God you've got somebody in this position right now that's willing to sit down and have that conversation, tough or not. Somebody that's willing to, and I'm saying this for the benefit of the residents, including myself, is that you got somebody that's willing to be open about it, lay the cards on the table, and it sounds like we've got the group that we need. Now we just need to hear from all of them so that then we need to blast that out to the residents and make sure they understand that that's the case and then see where it goes.
We've got a town hall coming up as well.
Yeah, and then, I think the first he said they were shooting for it.
Yeah, we are.
So I'm going to probably try to come and at least get that recorded or at least find out how we can, memorialize that if people can't come. But I certainly wanted to be there too, just to kind of hear what's going on.
You should be.
Yeah. And I'll mention it now. I hopefully I still have people's attention that in the YouTube video, they actually allow now for a card to be placed, a poll card. So at the end of each of these podcasts, there'll be a poll card that they can click on that will say, do you support home rule, yes or no? So here's the other thing that I'm trying to accomplish with this, and this is just a kind of a sidebar, is that I thought about it and I thought, when it comes to, and I will not, this is the only reason why I'm saying it, not to get into national politics, but I'm saying that the reason I think that a lot of people secretly or supported Trump without wanting to say it is because they just had their own opinions, and in some ways they just were tired of the discourse or exhausted by all of it, and they just wanted to think what they think or believe what they believe and be left alone. And so giving people an ability to kind of listen to this while they're working out or while they're doing whatever they do in life, and then decide for themselves if the information is good enough, then maybe they can either change their mind, or maybe it will instill that, okay, yeah, I was correct, and that this is something to be supported, or this is something to shoot down. So I wish it wasn't such a big deal right off the bat, because I wanted to have some fun with this, but it's good to have trustees that I've gotten the feedback from that are like, yeah, let's do it. I mean, if anything, that's worth a lot. I mean, imagine if nobody wanted to talk about it, because I think that's the other thing you saw on Facebook. People think like this is being sneaked by or crammed down. Yeah. And it's like, look, we only have so many opportunities per year, and Nick's passion brought me to this point. You only have so many times per year where this is a good idea to bring up, Although
we've been talking about this for months.
Yeah, but that's the question I got to ask you though. Why you've been talking about it? People don't feel like it's been talked about. So how come? And unfortunately, I said the same thing. You're going to have to take an ad out in every paper, for a year before, and people still will say they didn't know about it.
Right.
So I get it, but at the same time, how come there wasn't anything with this being such a big deal? How come there wasn't more? What's your take on why there wasn't more?
Let me ask you, how would you get the word out? Because the way we've been getting the word out is posting the agendas. It's right on the agenda, on the cow, home rule discussion. And that's been going on for months now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the way people live their lives now, they don't care about, looking at agendas and looking at that kind of thing.
Yeah, but they care about being on Facebook.
There you go.
And that's where we're posting this stuff.
Yeah,
and now we have a village website. We've never had a village website before.
Yeah.
Now we have a village website that's got all this information on it, clickable information, and you can click on it.
I was just checking the questions from my father-in-law because, he's in his late 70s, and he was saying the same thing. Like he's not on Facebook. He doesn't know. He still reads the paper and things like that. Now, Westchester's population can be,
there's going to be
fairly
something
older.
You had mentioned wanting to get something in the village newspaper for yourself.
Yeah.
It's got to be in today.
Oh, it does?
For March.
Okay.
It's got to be in by the 15th of the previous month for the next month.
Okay, and when does it come out in March?
It comes out like the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd.
Of March?
Yeah.
Okay, so people would still have time to digest these before the vote.
We're going to try and get... We're going to get it on for this March newspaper, the home rule stuff in the paper.
Sure.
It's
at least just to say that
but it's the home rule information.
Just the idea that it's happening. I think
it's happening. Just the facts. That's all we're allowed to do is put out the facts, and that's all we're doing is put it out.
And
the facts.
And I might be naive about how popular this needs to become in order for me to feel like it's had an impact, because I want people to share this as much as they can, just so that I can get as many interviews done as I can, get as much out there as far as conversations that I memorialize, and then it's there. It's there for people to choose to, if you go to the home rule vote with your head down or with your head in the sand, that's your own fault. But I think, if this is being done, then it gives people no excuse, because you've heard directly from the horse's mouth what they think and what their intentions are. Now you have to consume it. And so we're all, and I know the village has plenty of options in that regard. And I think that's where people, at least for me on Facebook, that's where I was seeing people go, well, this wasn't in the February paper, how come? And it's like, well, I don't know. I wish I had a good answer for that. And I think it maybe should have been too, or even December or January. But, I don't want to tell you what Nick had said, but what's your take on that? Why wasn't this? You say it's going to be in the March one, but then
the information from
they
home
got
rule was
2 weeks. The announcement of it. Is there? I haven't seen an announcement
of.
I'm nerdy. I read the paper, the Westchester.
It wasn't in the previous papers. Honestly, I've got no excuses for the late coming out of the information. Okay. We just agreed to put it out. I think it was November board meetings.
Yeah. That's not a big challenge.
And the thing is, the village can't put funding towards it. Taxpayer money can't be there. We're limited on how much discussion we're allowed to speak about home rule.
Okay.
And Nick's a fireman. I own multiple businesses.
Yeah.
This isn't what we do for a living, is what I'm saying.
I hear you. That's why I say it's
even though I put that amount of time into it.
I'm not putting you on the hot seat with that. What I'm saying is, I'm
being honest. Sometimes it gets off your mind.
Because I want to make sure people understand.
Right.
When you say that, understand there's another side to that.
Yeah.
And people, like I told him, people are going to see excuses when they want to see excuses, and they're going to see, reasoning when they see or a good reason when they want to see a good reason.
I'm not an excuse maker,
right?
But you're
I
asking.
get that from
I
you,
opened
but
up
it's
a new
like,
business about 2 years ago. It just started popping in November. You're busy, and
no, I get it.
there's no excuse. We should have been on it earlier. And I was talking to Nick one day, and he says, "Hey, what are we doing with this home rule stuff?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness, we've got to put the information out there." And thankfully, there's committees out there that are willing to do this for us, but it's got to be us organizing.
Yeah, and I don't even want your job, let alone Paul's. So I mean, I can't imagine. Like everybody wants to be a leader until they're put in that position, and they realize how much it takes and how hard it is. And then they go, oh, wow, like, okay, now I get it. So it's like I feel like every teenager should have a service job, like at a grocery store or at McDonald's, because then every time I pull through a drive-through, I remember that when I worked at McDonald's, and I'm like, okay, this guy doesn't need my crap.
I hear you.
So anyway, I know.
It also you become one of those people that tells the manager how good the employees are working as well.
Exactly. Yeah. I just did that. I just did that in Home Depot. I went to Home Depot for something. I was in the middle of a tile job, and I needed this done. I needed them to swap something out for me, and they didn't have to do it. They could have said no, and they didn't. And I went straight to the manager the next day, and I said, "Listen,
it's important.
Your people took care of me. I want to appreciate that, and this and that." So, yeah, I get that,
And most of the time, the manager will say, "Goodness, thank you so much for telling us that. All we hear are complaints."
Yeah. Yep. So. All right, good. I know you're pressed for time, so I want to be able to say everything else I need to say to close up the podcast. But I appreciate it. I mean, I
appreciate you putting your time towards this. You're donating your time just like we donate our time.
Yeah,
whether you're an elected official or not, you're doing.
Yeah, I think
great. Thank you so much.
Nobody's doing it, so I think it needs to be done, and hopefully we can get this to spread like wildfire. And like I said, I mean, I can't say enough about having trustees that are willing to do that and sit down and actually talk about it. You're not hiding anything.
You can't.
And people don't realize that until they listen to this.
I'm a big one on communication, and I always preach it to my employees. I like my lower level employees to know as much as our upper level employees, because it's important to have that camaraderie almost. And the more information you give people, the more they get it. Yeah. And the more you hide, the more they won't get it.
Yeah. And I don't know. I feel this one might feel that way in terms of home rule being on there so quick, but it didn't. To me, I wasn't sure until I looked into it more. So while it might feel that way, snuck in or pushed past, I think there's more to it. I think something else. It became clear to me. I feel like something else is going on, and whether that's excuses or not, there's something to be said for why it's happening now and why it needs to happen. So let's find out. But so yeah. Thanks again. I'll let you go back to your businesses and your day, and we'll talk about something outside the podcast. I got something interesting to talk to you about. But Thank you for listening, Westchester. I appreciate what you're doing to get informed. I appreciate you sharing this. We're going to be on Facebook at Westchester Informed. I'll have my email address on there as well. We're going through YouTube with just a static image, so it'll be a YouTube video, but it'll basically just be the audio. And then the links that I'm going to include are links to materials that I've read and things that I'm accessing to understand more about home rule, and also links to contribute to this. I obviously am going to rush to try to get something in the paper about this too, or at least get it out more than just Facebook. So the contributions help, because obviously that's a cost. I want to support the Westchester paper. So if you can contribute, that's great. On the Facebook page, you can contribute by clicking Shop Now. And then on YouTube, I'll have a link directly to the PayPal to contribute as well. So hopefully you find this as a great resource. I'm going to keep doing this and keep pushing, at least through the home rule issue. And then hopefully we can have some fun with this and start to really learn more about what's going on with parks and the school board and all kinds of good stuff. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it again, and we'll see you next time.